So let's talk about the next 5 years, shall we? Obviously, the election's on Tuesday, and that's what everybody's focusing on, but we're going to try to take a step back and say, okay, well, what are some of the investment themes that we as investors need to be aware of, particularly as we look out over the next 5 years? And most importantly, what you'll find is that the themes that we're going to talk about really are sort of independent of what happens on Tuesday. Not to burst everybody's bubble, I know everybody's fired up about the election, but history tells us that there's no one direction that the markets go, or there's no one direction that the policies go based upon political parties. We've certainly seen situations where the Democrats have lowered taxes, Republicans have raised taxes, Republicans lower taxes, Democrats raise taxes. You'll hear later on in the program about the Secure Act being perhaps one of the single biggest tax increases on your retirement accounts that we've seen in decades. Guess what? Passed by a Republican Senate, signed by a Republican president earlier this year. So just be aware before you drop to too many generalizations or conclusions about what may or may not happen on Tuesday. There are certainly some broader themes that every investor should consider. So we'll talk about that on the program. Welcome back to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're Central Florida's longest running radio program, also one of the top 25 financial planning podcasts on the World Wide Web. If you're interested in connecting to us through social media on the podcast side of things, well, that's very easy. Just search for Nelson Financial Planning or Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris on any of your favorite social media channels, and you will find us. If you can't, go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. Upper right-hand corner, click on the image that looks most familiar to you, and it will automatically connect you to our channel. My name is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning. Our team of certified financial fiduciaries stands ready this week to help you change your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan that produces superior results and gives you peace of mind for the future. So there's definitely some themes to consider regardless of sort of what plays out on Tuesday, and certainly we want to consider those, not just those themes, if you will, but sort of what the investment implications are for investors out there. You know, COVID certainly served as an accelerant for some of these themes. Some of these themes are sort of already percolating out there in the economy at large, and certainly the COVID pandemic certainly served as an accelerant. If you think about sort of the geopolitical tensions, the global supply chains, and the technological disruptions, the notion of working from home, of e-commerce. I mean, you think of all of that. I mean, those were already trends that were going on out there that this COVID pandemic really has served to dramatically sort of accelerate that. And so, you know, if you think of it from that perspective, all of that sort of leads to sort of our first theme, if you will, and that's this notion of a sort of a retooled global growth, a retooled more of a sort of economic picture. And obviously this was a theme that was happening before in terms of the role of technology and its pervasiveness. But what we've observed is that those that were sort of holding out, I guess, or those that were not comfortable, whether it's businesses with people working from home, or whether it was folks that really didn't really do much with the internet or didn't really rely on technology, and hadn't ordered things online and things like that, all of that really sort of shifted pretty dramatically. I mean, you were forced by baptism, by fire, to get comfortable with this technology. We see this play out nearly every day in the office, maybe less so now that we're 6 months into the pandemic, but when we're doing our video calls with clients, I can hear Margie, our office assistant, you know, kind of almost doing like a little 5-minute IT speech before they get connected to kind of work people through how you need to get connected. So I think that's something where we've all had to, whether we were comfortable or familiar with that kind of technology or not, you had to get familiar with it. So certainly I think that leads to sort of a bit of a retooled economy that really seeks to take much greater advantage of that. And so from an investment perspective, you certainly want to be looking at the sectors of where your portfolio is. We've talked about this on the program before in terms of, hey, travel and leisure, those types of sectors. It's going to take a while for those to kind of come back. The role of technology continues to be even greater in today's society. So understand that sector analysis on your portfolio has to be done. That's one of the most important things to be doing when it comes to looking at your investments today. The next theme is one that you may not have heard of, but I think you're going to start to hear a lot more about it, and it's called MMT. No, that's not a new mixed martial arts fighting league. It actually stands for Modern Monetary Theory. MMT, Modern Monetary Theory. And you're going to hear a lot about this. If you haven't heard it yet, you will, because it's the idea that monetary policy, which is what the Federal Reserve does, should serve as fiscal policy, i.e. what the politicians do. Almost like that the federal policy, the monetary policy should serve as the fiscal policy's wallet through printing of money, okay, obviously that's what the Federal Reserve's doing, that enable political leaders to combat recessions. It's one of these things where basically it's an economic theory that sort of justifies what's happening out there. So you've almost got the Fed's, the monetary policy that the Fed set, working hand in hand with the fiscal policy that the government sets. And so it's certainly an economic theory that's been around, and I think you're going to hear more and more about it as the justification of what's happening out there now, right? These stimulus packages that are several $1 trillion ultimately are intended to help get through the economic period of time and the economic damage that has been presented by the COVID pandemic. So again, some concern there, right? I mean, still printing money. I mean, at some point, somebody's got to, pay the bill, if you will, at the end of the night. And I always get worried when new or newer economic theories start to get used to sort of justify things. So, but no MMT, Modern Monetary Theory. You're going to probably hear more about that going forward as sort of a justification in the financial and media guidelines in terms of sort of justifying what's going on out there in the world. Some perspective, of course, if you kind of look at the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank or the Bank of Japan, from a historical perspective, if you look at the balance sheet, meaning the amount of debt that's outstanding as a percentage of GDP, as you might well imagine, it has certainly gone up quite a bit. In 2007, Federal Reserve balance sheet as a percentage of GDP was at 6%. 2019, pre-pandemic, it was at 19%. 2020, right now, it's up to 33%. If you think that's bad, don't worry, the numbers are much greater over in Europe and Japan. ECB, those same numbers, the balance sheet, if you will, by the ECB, European Central Bank, sort of the Federal Reserve of Europe, 16% as a percentage of GDP in the year 2007, 39% pre-pandemic, 53% now in 2020. So you can see where those numbers, Japan, it's much, much worse. 118% is the balance sheet as a percentage of its GDP in the year 2020. So you can see where the Federal Reserves and the equivalents around the world have really increased the amount of borrowing. Again, justification, MMT, Modern Monetary Theory. We'll see how that all plays out. The big caveat, of course, low inflation. So those are a couple of the themes. When we get back, we're going to continue sort of the next 3 themes here that we think investors really need to be on the lookout for in the next 5 years. All that and more coming up on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris.